All right, let's learn what Git is. Well, it says it there, right there in the bottom. It's a way to manage your source code. You write some code, you want to save it, you want to manage it, you want to do stuff with it. Let's look at a picture. First, there's this fancy word over here called a repository. This just means a place to put stuff. Think of it as your closet or your drawer where you just put everything, okay? You got a local repository and a working copy inside of Git. We'll figure out what those mean in a minute. What you need to do is you need to save your code on your computer locally, and then you need to save your code to the cloud. Each of these are repositories. This is your remote repository in the cloud. This is your local repository on your computer. You have a local copy of everything with Git, which is really, really awesome. And you don't need to be online to get your copy. You can just always work on your stuff. And there's another thing, working copy here just means it's the stuff you're working on. You can have all these changes, and you may or may not have saved it to your local repository yet. What would that mean? Well, we'll learn some more. All right, let's say you have some files. All right, we know you have some files. You're going to create some files locally, and then what you're going to do is you're going to save them. So the very first stage that your files are in is called Untracked Files. When you do a command called git add, it's going to add it into the staging area, okay? You may have files that are already being tracked and you're working on them, in which case then you would still do a git add and you would add them into a place called your staging area. Once they're in your staging area, you're getting all ready to save them to your repository, but you haven't yet. You said, these are things that I'm changing. I'm not quite ready to save them yet. I don't believe that the changes I've made are good, but it's coming, okay? It's kind of like being in the batting circle in baseball, getting ready to go up to bat. You're not there yet, but you soon will be. So you take your untracked files, you add them, or you take your working directory, you add them to your staging area. Then once they're in your staging area, you're going to do another command called commit. Git commit. And when you commit those changes in your staging area, it goes into your local repository. Okay? So that's the first things you do. Here are some crazy lines. This is kind of hard to understand. But that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help you out. All right, there's this thing called push and pull. All your files are locally on your computer. And what you're going to do is you're going to go from this side, you're going to put them all the way over into the right side. You're going to go from the left to the right. So in your working area, you're going to add them into your staged area. Once you've added them into your staged area, because you decided that these are things that you're going to get ready to complete, then you're going to commit them to your local repository. After you commit them to your local repository and you're all done with all your stuff, you're going to save it up into the cloud. You're going to push it all the way up into your remote repository, way up into the cloud. Then, later on, someday, new computer, same computer, doesn't matter. When you want to get those changes back down, you're going to pull them all the way back down. Okay? You're going to pull them down. These are commands you do in Git, and they're always done in tuples here, sometimes more. But you start with Git and then the command. And this is just how you do it from the command line. We're going to also learn how to do it from the Eclipse IDE, so you get some more of a visual on it. But you git add it, you git commit it, you git push it. There's another command, git fetch, but most of the time you do git fetch, you also do a pull, and you pull all that stuff back down. Once you have something on your local repository, there's another command called git checkout, which allows you to switch between all these different versions of the files that you have. And then of course, sometimes also after you've fetched some files down, you want to merge some changes back into your master repository that you have locally. Still not making much sense, I know. Let's see where we can go from here. All right, what is Git and what is GitHub? So Git is a software service It helps you manage all your versions of your software. So that way when you're local and you want to make a change, you don't have to say, you know what, this is version 1, and then I'm going to make a copy of that, and it's going to be version 2 copy, and make a copy of that and make version 3. You just kind of take the change and you just work with it, and the software service will help you manage all those versions over time so you don't need to. This software service, Git, was created by Linus Torvald. You'll see them here. Really smart guy. And the whole system is called a source control management. This has been going on for decades in the industry for software. It allows you to save your code, and it does a lot more. GitHub, that's a website, and it provides services that augment Git. It does Git plus more. Git is just one service that it allows. It also does physical storage for the remote repository. It allows you to do some code reviewing. It allows you to do project management and visualization on all sorts of things. So GitHub is a website that does a lot more than just Git. Git just manages your source code. All right, so there's a video here. I'm not going to play it in line. You have access to this on the student resources. So you should go out and watch this video too to help you get a little bit of an introduction to Git and why we use Git and a little bit into GitHub. All right, I'm on the GitHub website right now. I have a username, and I created a project called Game of Sticks for the students. So when I went to this URL, I was able to see my source code here. This is GitHub. It's a website. Look at all these things here. These are all sorts of things you can do that are related to Git and storing all your files. First, I want to show you that really in the beginning that I have these files up here. I have a README file that's of .md for markdown. It's a little play on words instead of markup. So this would be a README file. It doesn't really have anything on there very much right now. So if I click back, go back into the directory, most of my stuff is in the source directory. In this source directory, I have all my Java files. These are all stored up in the cloud. So I can click on one, and we can see all the source here. And then I can edit it here if I want to edit it here, or I can actually view the history of all the changes, so you can see that I've made changes. So the fact that the website here is showing it nice and graphically like this is very nice, because GitHub's or Git version command line is not so nice. I can keep track of issues, and I can do something called pull requests, which is when you're dealing with multiple people working on the same code base and you want to assure that they're doing the right stuff at the right time. Let me go back to the code, please. Thank you. There's 9 commits, which means that when I was working on the source on my laptop, my computer at home, and my local repository, I made 9 commits up to the remote repository. We are looking at the remote repository right now. There are branches here, believe it or not. I have 3 different branches here. I have one that's a master, that is what I am extending out to the students. Then I have 2 other branches here that actually shows different versions of the code that are being tracked simultaneously. I have the same root, the same origin of the code, and then when I go to that, you'll see that the files have actually different implementations. Same set of files, but they're actually different than what was before. So I can go back to my master branch, and that is the default. Most of you students will be always working on master. So when I go to my code, there's a certain command, clone or download. So if I wanted to, I could download a zip of the entire set of code up in the cloud, and that's really cool. But there's this thing right here where I could get a clone URL. When I click this, it's going to copy this URL. That URL you'll use inside of Eclipse, and then inside of Eclipse it will download all the code that's up here, and then it will make a connection between your Eclipse and the cloud. So you'll see a version of this working pretty soon, and you'll see how it works inside of Eclipse once you get this URL right here. So this is how you get your clone URL. It's important to use when you start to integrate Eclipse in with GitHub.